China's President Xi Jinping has left Moscow after 2 days of talks with President Vladimir Putin. The two leaders issued a joint statement on Tuesday calling for responsible dialogue to end the war in Ukraine. Putin says Beijing's proposals to end the conflict could be used as the basis for a peace settlement, but that Kyiv and the West do not appear willing to resolve the situation. Let's bring in journalist Yulia Shapovalova from Moscow. Yulia, how much has President Putin actually got out of this meeting?
Well, I think he has to be pretty much satisfied. So many vitally important issues have been addressed during the meetings. The Ukrainian conflict, as he said, economy, trade, energy. He praised Beijing's, of course, proposals for a peaceful settlement of the crisis in Ukraine. He said the plan can be taken as a basis for further agreements. Many, actually, statements of the plan coincide with Russia's approaches. Putin spoke about the growing trade ties between the two countries. Trade turnover between Russia and China has grown 116% in the course of 10 years. China is Russia's leading foreign trade partner, as we know. And also, the leaders signed statements on deepening relations of partnership and strategic cooperation between the countries and a plan for the development of key areas of Russian-Chinese economic cooperation until 2030. What is also important, according to Mr. Putin, the Russian Federation is ready to switch to the yuan in trade with other countries, not just for Russia and China. Yuan payments will be in place for Russia and the countries of Asia, Africa and Latin America. According to Putin, Russia will increase food supplies to the Chinese market. There will be exports of meat, grain and other agricultural produce. Regarding energy, Russia remains a strategic supplier of oil, natural gas, including LNG, coal and electricity to China. The leaders discussed also the construction of the Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline, which will pass through Mongolia. So a plethora of issues which will have massive future impact here.
Yulia, thank you very much indeed. Yulia Shapovalova from Moscow. We're going to bring in Katrina Yu. She's joining us now from Beijing. There's been a lot of speculation in the media following this two-day meeting that essentially Russia needs China more than China needs Russia. What has China gained from this meeting?
Well, I think China is sending the message very clearly that despite the consternation from the US and its Western allies, that China is continuing to move forward and deepen its relationship with Moscow. Beijing described this relationship as at its highest level ever. And basically, this relationship is here to stay, despite Russia moving forward with its invasion of Ukraine. Now, we had two documents released, joint statements released from Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. The first was really looking at strategic cooperation. Two countries say that this is not a political or military alliance, but they do seem to very much share this worldview that they are against a US-led world order. And to that end, they said that there would be more cooperation through the blocks such as SEO, the Belt and Road Infrastructure Project, and through the BRICS group as well. But at the same time, they also criticized NATO and the AUKUS plan. And then the second document was about deepening economic cooperation, especially in the areas of agriculture and energy. And in return, Beijing gets cheap oil and gas, and it provides Russia with a crucial economic lifeline at a time when the country is struggling with sanctions from the West. Now, I think there's two things really mainly that Beijing has achieved here. And one is that Xi Jinping has quite successfully, I think, used this visit as a platform to promote China's peace plan. Now, Putin said himself that they would discuss this, and both sides during this meeting said they would both wanted to promote dialogue to prevent this conflict in Ukraine from escalating. Now, it's clear that there was no concrete outcome in terms of improving the situation in Ukraine, but what matters to Beijing is that Xi Jinping at least appeared to be a global statesman and peacemaker during this trip. And the second thing that Beijing has achieved, well, it really is the optics. And the optics were that this is a strong China supporting and propping up a weak Russia. And it does really seem that Putin was the junior partner here needing Xi Jinping. Now, we didn't see China crossing any red lines, offering, for example, military support to Russia. China still very much needs to preserve the health of its relationship, especially economically, with the EU. But at the same time, we did see China supporting Vladimir Putin, throwing his weight behind Vladimir Putin, and needing Russia to stay strong no matter how the Ukraine war ends. And this is because China desperately needs Russia not to fail and Putin to remain in power for this increasing confrontation that it finds itself in. It's increasing tensions against the United States. It needs Moscow to be strong and back there in its corner as that situation with the US seems to be getting worse.
It's Katrina Yu bringing us up to date from Beijing. Katrina, thank you very much indeed.